All right, good evening, Council, and welcome back after a bit of a summer break. Welcome, and hope you all had some nice summer. I know I did, and gonna have to relearn how to do this council thing. Felt like it's been so long. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with a moment of reflection before we get into the approval of the agenda. So, a moment of reflection now. All right, getting into the approval of the agendas, we have the consent agendas, pretty straightforward. A few correspondence information items, minutes, financials. Any, any interest in pulling from the consent agenda? Otherwise, a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Councillor Fox makes the motion to approve the consent agenda. If there's no further comments or questions, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And then the regular meeting agenda. I have not heard of any. CEO Burdette.
My apologies for not mentioning this earlier, but we would like to add one in-camera item, K1, and it's no longer called FOIP. It is now ATIA, which I'd like to call ASIA. I don't know if that's caught on yet, but under section 19, under disclosure, harmful to business. Just one item in camera.
So if there is no other additions or questions on the agenda, a motion to approve the agenda with the one additional item. Councillor Fox makes the motion. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And for the good of council, we've had a long summer break, so I'm sure there's lots to share. Does anyone like to start? It was a very eventful summer. Councillor Poitras.
You betcha. Just a little acknowledgement here. This past summer, local businessman Don the Barber retired. Yeah, he's been in business in town for, I would say, over 60 years, I think is what he said. So 60 years of keeping the men in this town looking handsome. And so I just like to acknowledge Don the Barber for a great career and hope he enjoys retirement. Thanks, Don.
I think his job was just a real favorite pastime hobby for him. So, well, that's really good. Thanks for mentioning that. Anyone else have a comment for the good of council? Councillor Henniger?
We just had FCSS Back to School Connect, and it was great just to see everyone lines up at the doors every year. So thank you to the organizers, but as well as the individuals who donate. It costs quite a bit of money to get school supplies now, especially a duotang that's had the inflation go up. So more and more people who can contribute to that next year would be great. And then we also had Pride in the Park this past weekend, which was a great attendance as well. And then shortly after that, the Filipino supper at the parish hall. So they were fundraising for the maintenance of their church, and it was awesome.
Oh, very good. Any other thoughts, comments? CEO Burdette?
I've got a couple here. I guess 2 weeks ago, we had an announcement from the province. Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors came down and announced that the Stage 1A is going ahead, which is really exciting news. We've known about it for a little bit, but the formalization of a public announcement was exciting. So we're excited to see that underway. Not that I'm trying to get rid of anyone here, but election nomination deadline is September 22nd. I mean, that counts for you guys too, but all those interested out there, can come in for a package at the office, get some more information, or even if they just have questions, you can come talk to administration or talk to another counselor to get some information on, the good that the position of council and mayor does for our community, which is really important. And the last one, we had talked about this, I guess, back in the spring. So starting September, we're going to start streaming more of our meetings so that all meetings are accessible, recorded, and then a lot more of the discussions that happen at our committee of the wholes and our finance infrastructure meetings can be shared with the public who might not be able to make the meeting in person, but they can see how the decision-making process is happening with council. So those will be streamed just like this meeting is currently, and our other meetings are streamed on YouTube through the town website. You can access that.
Yeah, a few other highlights that we were able to participate in. The Minister of Municipal Affairs was here, Dan Williams. That was July 24, which I thought was a really good discussion. And I felt that he was, I think he understands where municipal government is at and is looking forward to getting to know the department, because I don't think he's been in the role for more than 3 to 4 months, so it takes a while to get oriented. So definitely appreciated them coming by. I know Foothill Center also had a visit by the minister. I'm not sure what minister it is anymore, but they also had a visit by the minister. So it seems like the government's definitely sending their ministers around to get to know their communities. And then on July 19, I was at the Kainai Days breakfast. So we served over 600 plates to anyone at the Kainai Days in the morning. So it's a fun thing to do with the other municipalities that have been involved. And yeah, those are a few other things. And I know there was the big truck rally, petting zoo in there too, which was great to see all the participation in that. So other than that, anyone else have any thoughts for the good of council? Councillor Fox?
Not that I'm ready for it, but next week is back to school. So just everybody be cautious out driving around. There's going to be a lot of kids excited and not paying attention. Maybe excited.
Maybe excited? Parents are super excited? You're not? That is true. All right, so if that's all for the good of council, then we will proceed to a public hearing, of which we have 3 tonight. And we'll use the opportunity to be able to invite anyone wishing to speak for or against proposed bylaws. And we'll ask our planner, Gavin Scott, to introduce bylaw 2010, which is a land use bylaw rezone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening, we have for your consideration bylaw 2010. The purpose of this bylaw is to designate lands legally described as Lot 14, Block 315, Plan 92B, from residential multi-unit to residential multi-unit 1 to residential multi-unit 2. The land use bylaw has recently been updated to better define density into 2 land use districts for multi-unit use. The bylaw amendment is a request to increase density to accommodate a 6-unit development. 3 units of this development have already been approved through the MPC under the current zoning. The item this evening was advertised in the Gazette July 30th and August 6th. Posted in the town office, circulated on social media, and sent to adjacent landowners. No concerns or comments were received from the public. Following this evening, we do recommend we move forward with 2nd and 3rd reading.
Very good, thank you for the introduction. Being this is a public hearing, I will request a motion from council to proceed to the public hearing for bylaw 2010. Anyone prepared to make the motion? Councillor Poitras makes that motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. So this is a public hearing from bylaw 2010. It's a land use bylaw rezone from residential multi-unit 1 to residential multi-unit 2. Anyone here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2010?
Good evening,
Good day, sir.
council.
Mhm.
I'm Bill Hall from the town of Fort Macleod here. I am against this bylaw. For the reason being is, I believe that those lots were purchased on June 28th or July 15th, in between that time frame. And according to the town's planning conditions, the buyers have 2 years to build. It's been over 2 years, and they have 6 lots there that they haven't built on. So I think that those lots should come back to the town and be resold rather than granting a building permit for the sixplex. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. So you are speaking against bylaw 2010, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2010? I'll ask another time. Anyone here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2010? If not, I'll request a motion to close the public hearing for bylaw 2010. Councillor Patel makes the motion. Call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We will consider the public hearing in the next section of our agenda. Moving on to bylaw 2005, and we'll ask our Director of Finance, Chris Holback, to introduce bylaw 2005.
Thank you, Mayor Fader. Good evening, Council. The first public hearing on the agenda is for bylaw 2005. It is for the non-residential tax incentives that the town of Fort Macleod offers. We've offered this program for a few years now, and every 3 years we like to review the bylaw, see if it's working both administratively and from a goals perspective, a strategic goals perspective from councils. And I think we all agree it's quite a popular program. Everyone loves the tax incentive. So we've, from administration's perspective on this one, we've just done a refresh of this bylaw. We have done a few changes in the wording just to tighten it up so that both the public and administration have a clear understanding of the rules of the program. There's just 4. So it's a non-refundable $100 application fee now. That's what we've asked for. We did some clarification about deadlines in 5.3 of the new bylaw. We did some additional details in a new section on the timing of when you should apply for the tax incentive for your property if you've done an improvement or a new build. And then we just did some housekeeping because council does not look at the full applications. Council only looks at the recommendation and the report from administration. So those were the major changes to the bylaw. That's about it. It's going to be the exact same thing for the next one for the multi-unit res one, but we can talk about that later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will request a motion from council to open the public hearing for bylaw 2006. Councillor Wolstenholme makes that motion. All in favor? The motion is carried. This is a public hearing for bylaw 2006. Oh, sorry, 2005. I'm jumping ahead. So bylaw 2005 is for this public hearing, and the motion has been carried. So anyone here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2005, we would ask that you come to the mic, share your thoughts. Anyone here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2005? If none, I will request a motion to close the public hearing for bylaw 2005. Councillor Patel makes the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we'll do the same for bylaw 2006. And the introduction is essentially the same except the application. It's non-res instead of, or sorry, multi-unit instead of non-res. So I'll request a motion from council to open the public hearing for bylaw 2006. Councillor Fox makes the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Is there anyone here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2006? There's 4 I would say minor edits just to add some clarity to the bylaw, as there was some confusion regarding the timing and the applications. Anyone here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2006? Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, council. This here multi-residential property, I think you should take another look at what is happening when you build these many units, especially on 9th Street. While council has been enjoying the summer off, on June 17th at 5 p.m., there was 3 officers that visited one of the units. On June 13th at 7 p.m., there was another 2 officers that visited these units. On June 21st at 8:41 a.m., there was 1 officer that visited these units. On June 27th from 9 to 12, I'm not exactly sure the exact time of that, there was 1 officer. My neighbor told me about that one. On June 14th at 4 a.m., there was 3 officers. There was also an ambulance called. On July 4th at 7 p.m., well, this was a good one. There was a dumpster fire in one of the units. So the fire department had to be called. On July 12th at 6:25 p.m., there was 2 officers that attended at 271 Towers, is what these units are called now. There was 1 person that had was arrested, and then an ambulance was called. On July 16th at 10 a.m., there was another officer that came out. August 11th at 2:30 p.m., there was 2 officers that came out. August 12th at 1:30 p.m., there was 1 officer that came out. At 1:45 p.m., a second officer had to come out. And then at 2:04 p.m., an ambulance was called. On August 12th at 4:15, there was 1 officer called out. And on August 20th at 3:50 in the afternoon, an ambulance attended one of the back units, and I'm not exactly sure what had happened. So while this is not connected to F3, but item I3 on tonight's agenda, there is a request to forego some taxes. Well, I think that the town residents are paying for officers that have to attend to these units, as well as the ambulance, as well as in the fire. So I think these units called the Towers have had enough money paid for their buildings. I'm also in receipt of a letter that was given to the tenants from Calnon, which is a division of Coastal Oakmont Real Estate firm, and that was the people that took out the tax incentive for the 4 years. And I apologize, Mr. Poitras was inquiring as to why Coastal Oakmont took out the tax incentive when VB Block took out the building permit. Well, it's because these people have sold the building, and it was sold sometime in May, because on June 3rd of that council meeting, I was in receipt of this letter already. So I knew that had happened, but yet I couldn't speak because council doesn't allow people to comment on non-items on the agenda. And now I see that the I'm not exactly sure who the letter was from, but it was from an Andrew, it's Ocor or Core, whereas they're saying that they didn't they didn't check their email, or they checked their email and they didn't get the property taxes. Well, that's not an excuse to not pay property taxes. the property taxes are out in people's either mail or email. I don't think they come by email. And so they should pay the whole price on item I3. Thank you. So I'm obviously in disagreeing, or I don't agree with this change in status for that lot. Thank you.
If I may ask you a clarifying question, the bylaw in front of us is a multi-unit residential tax incentive. It's changing some of the wording and clarifying some of the details. I am curious how you think that might have a positive impact on the towers that you're referring to if we don't pass this bylaw.
I'm sorry, I'm not following you.
Well, if we don't pass this bylaw, the multi-residential tax incentive is still in place. It's just not updated. So I'm just wondering how not updating the multi-unit residential tax incentive would help address the concerns that you have regarding the towers.
Well, because this item on the open public hearings is for a sixplex, which qualifies because it's any apartments more than 4 qualify for a multi-tax incentive. So I
Yeah, I
guess,
think what I'm asking is bylaw 2006 has nothing to do with the rezoning. It has strictly to do with the tax incentive bylaw. So I'm just wondering why you would think not approving bylaw 2006 would help address the concerns in the towers.
well, the 2006 is to it's to change the designation of the property, is it not?
No, that's a different bylaw. That's one we had a hearing previous. Bylaw 2006 is strictly the non-residential, multi-unit residential tax incentive bylaw.
Well, what is this tax incentive then? Is it not for new builds?
For new builds, correct?
So the one on 9th Street, is that not going to be a new build?
The one that
The one
that
that's
will
going
be
to
a
start
new
building
build.
tomorrow? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but this is not gonna unapprove that application. This is strictly to do with the tax incentive bylaw.
Okay. I know I'm
Yeah.
out of line, but I just wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah.
make
Okay,
a
I just
council
wanted
aware
to
on
ask.
item I3 though.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2006? If not, I will request a motion from council to close the public hearing for bylaw 2006. Councillor Patel makes the motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And under considerations of the public hearings that we just had, we'll start again with bylaw 2010. The recommendation from our planner and administration is to proceed with second and third reading. Is anyone prepared to make a motion for second reading of bylaw 2010? Councillor Wolstenholme makes the motion for approval of bylaw 2010. Any questions, comments regarding bylaw 2010? CEO Burdette.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a comment on, I guess, a response to the comment that was made regarding the timelines and the build requirements for this property. I don't know the exact requirements, but I do recall that a longer build period was negotiated because they were buying the entirety of the block, and it wasn't reasonable to think that they could build the entirety within a 2-year span. So I can get that information to council, whether it was 3, 4, or 5. But I do recall that it was negotiated that they did have a longer time period than just the 2 years to build out the entire block.
Any other comments, questions for administration? Debate on this bylaw 2010 and the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I will, Councillor Fox.
I guess I have more of a concern if there's that much police presence in that area, what is another sixplex gonna do?
Does administration have any thoughts, comments on that? Because I think it's already been rezoned to multifamily, so I don't know that we can adjust anything. It's right now, this is strictly because of the land use bylaw that we are going through this process currently.
Yeah, currently with the previous zoning of multi-unit there, to have applied for 6 units, they would have to go to MPC to get discretionary use, because it is over the 4, what that was in the previous bylaw. Now it's it's just multi-unit 1, multi-unit 2. So that's under the new rules why it has to come for a rezone. As far as the density goes, town administration and I think council's aware that, we rezoned a number of properties to hit multi-unit to allow for home development. And we're definitely not considering adding more than what is currently zoned in the multi-unit kind of section there. But yeah, we don't have any other comments regarding, we have had conversations with Sergeant Lafleur and the RCMP detachment about crime numbers and call-out numbers in the area and trying to help in that area, but we don't have any other comments.
I think the concerns are valid. I think having a discussion with the owners of the properties to understand what they're doing to try to curb some of the crime or the issues that they're experiencing would be, I think, in order. I know the RCMP has concerns, so I don't know if the current new owners have been spoken with regarding some of that. I think that would be in order. So we can always consider that as a motion after bylaw 2010. If council so desires. Any other comments regarding bylaw 2010? Councillor Fox?
Is it VB Block building this sixplex, or is it the new company?
It's not just VB Block. It's a different corporation. There are a few of the same players, but it's not the same corporation.
It's neither of those two.
Yeah. I don't know the exact makeup of it, but I know a few of the players that make up that corporation.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Debate? Councillor Monteith?
Particular company is having trouble with their units, that you can't say that we're not going to have any more or whatever because they're different, right? So we have to judge each one on their own. Now, we have to deal with that issue that those towers seem to be having, but I don't think that should negatively influence anyone else trying to do anything.
Good. Anyone else? Councillor Patel, did you have a comment? No, you didn't? Everyone else is good? Any other debate, discussion? If not, the motion for second reading of bylaw 2010 is on the floor. And I'll call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. I'll entertain a motion for third reading of bylaw 2010. Councillor Henniger makes a motion for third reading. Is there any other comments or questions for third reading? Otherwise, I will call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to bylaw 2005, it's a non-residential tax incentive bylaw. The recommendation from administration is proceed with second and third reading. Anyone prepared to make a motion for second reading of bylaw 2005? Councillor Patel makes the motion. Any further discussion or questions for administration? Debate? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. That is second reading. I'll entertain a motion for a third reading of bylaw 2005. Councillor Fox makes that motion. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion for third reading of bylaw 2005 has been carried. Moving on to bylaw 2006, it's a similar bylaw, just for multi-unit instead of non-res. Recommendation from administration is proceed with second and third reading. Anyone prepared to make a motion for second reading of bylaw 2006? Councillor Fox makes that motion. Any further discussion or questions on the bylaw? Debate? Seeing none, we'll call it the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And I'll request a motion for third reading of bylaw 2006. Councillor Patel makes that motion. If there's no further discussion or questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. So that takes care of consideration of the public hearings that we had today. Moving on, we are going to unfinished business. We have 2 items, and we have one, which is River Valley Wilderness Park paving proposal, and we'll ask our Director of Operations, Brennan Orr, to introduce this discussion to us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So what we're looking at tonight, like I said, is the Wilderness Park paving. So the recommendation is that, or from administration, is that we move forward with accepting the Scoogle Motors donation for the paving of the Wilderness Park parking lot and an approximate 1 kilometer loop of the existing 3.2 kilometers of pathway, and move forward with the tender process to get firm quotes and construction schedules that are acceptable to the donor and the donation that they've made. What I'd like to do is go through the summary slides, and we've looked at these before, but there have been some additional I guess public engagement that has occurred. So we'll go through this. So the River Valley Wilderness Park, we'll talk about Scoogle Motors donations. We'll talk about a little bit about the bylaw. We'll go through the opinion survey, and there is some additional information from that survey as well. The committee advisements, open house, and then some comments from Alberta Environment. So just a little history for the Scoogle Motors donation. Scoogle Motors representatives approached the town with a donation. They wanted to support the successful pathway projects in our community. They presented an idea of a paved parking lot and pathway at the Wilderness Park. And this was, in their words, to support the reduction of foot traffic over the bridge, as well as to support the accessibility of the park and pathways. The town administration reviewed the development guideline documentation and presented a potential option of an approximate 1 kilometer loop in the Wilderness Park. Worked out a communication schedule plan to get the engagement, which included the public survey, the committee advisement, open house, as well as council recommendations and motions. On this next slide, again, these cost estimates were based on past projects that were done by the town. And this just shows a little bit of the estimated loop that could be paved in the Wilderness Park, as well as the parking lot to update that. Looking at the bylaw, so bylaw 1775, this is the 2013 Parks bylaw. So the bylaw defines the area encompassing the park. There's 4 different areas. Define and use outlines, talk about fencing, signs, and the actual use of the park. The development is discussed as a note for Area 4, which is the only one that was in the bylaw as far as this, but it says Area 4 is designated as a natural area. Accordingly, no development of any kind is to be undertaken in this area, including trails, paths, etc. Also in the pathway master plan. So the pathway master plan was developed in accordance with this bylaw and those different zones. No pathways or development were suggested or put into Area 4. Just as a note, paving in the Wilderness Park, thank you. Paving in the Wilderness Park was not part of the plan to move forward with. Let's see. Oh, now I have to do 2 things. So we'll just look at the public opinion survey. So this is just a summarization. So the town administration organized a public survey in consultation with a communications specialist. We distributed through Voyant as well as posting online and the QR codes in the park itself in the Wilderness Park. Gathered information about park users and usage, desires for the park and suggestions for the future, accessibility. We asked specifically about a paved parking lot and pathway loop, the usage of the paved area, and then any general comments. So the data was gathered from June 16th to July 3rd. And we actually had one more respondent, so the survey responses was 413. Survey focus results. So just a couple of questions here focusing directly on this topic. So how important is improving accessibility of the River Valley Wilderness Park, such as the section of paved trail and parking lot? So we averaged the importance there at about 57.8%, and this is out of 100%. Question 9 was the direct question, would you like to see the parking lot and one existing trail loop paved at the River Valley Wilderness Park? So we had 257 that said yes, 98 that said no, and unsure 57. So that's about 62% that said yes, 24% that said no, and about 14% that were unsure. So this is information we were asked to look deeper into how the survey results came out. So we did look more into some detail. The question was asked about looking more at the responses from those that were using the River Valley pathways more. So just as an example, if you look on the top left, out of the about 55 respondents who said they use the park almost daily, they answered the question on paving pathways with no, 22 responses, unsure 13, and yes 20. So if you look at this, there is more information based on who said they used the park the most, and so there is additional data there. So looking at that, almost daily for paving, 22 no, 20 yes. Those who used it frequently, there's 36 no and 86 yes. Occasionally, once or twice a month, there's 27 no, 95 yes, and then rarely 13 that said no, 55 that said yes, and then never was 1 and 1. So there is additional information there that we tried to pull out to show who was actually using the park and what their responses were. So we did speak to 2 committees or received information from 2 committees as far as advisement. So the first one is the Environment Committee. So the Environment Committee is in support of a donation to make improvements in the park, but they do not support the paving. Some of the reasons that they cited was the environmental impact or contaminated runoff, potential repair costs, the sharp edges on the pathway. It's not a native product and does not fit the definition of the wilderness park. Users moving at high speeds and potential for causing accidents, and it's not conducive with animal movements in the park. They did have some additional suggestions to use other materials, to upgrade the current gravel. There were and continues to be some research done into what those materials might be. They asked about a compromise to paving pathways to be thought about and monies used in other areas. And some of the suggestions were upgrading the benches, signs, playgrounds, plants, information on the nature of the wildlife corridor, build a new picnic area or shelter, and paving of the parking lot and the path of the playground, but not the paths accessible but not the paths within the wilderness park. And then also suggestions about an accessible washroom, accessible playground equipment, and making sure that the front gate is accessible to those in wheelchairs or with strollers. There was also a feeling that the survey could have been leading, and that's partly why we wanted to look more into the details of the different uses of the park and look at some of their numbers. From the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, they were in strong support of a solid surface pathway such as asphalt in the Wilderness Park. This falls within the commitments of inclusion, equity, and community well-being. This helps ensure that our natural spaces are welcoming to all residents. And they did talk about that it is difficult sometimes or impossible to navigate these natural trails. especially for those in wheelchairs or with walkers or strollers. And this would provide a safe and consistent surface that people could use and supports families, seniors, individuals with disabilities, and others with varying needs to connect with nature. We did have an open house, and the posters that were used were in your package. I know that many of you were there. So we had another essential survey. We just had 4 questions, and so we have some details on that. And we had some impressions, I guess, from administration. We felt there was a good turnout. I think we guessed about 15 to 20 people that came in. And as we saw it, it was kind of evenly split as far as the notes as well as those that were talked to. The first question, did you complete the online Wilderness Park survey about pathways? So that was an even split, 4 that had already filled out that survey and 4 that had not. After attending tonight's open house, how supportive are you of paving the existing pathways? So strongly support 1, support 2, neutral 2, opposed 2, strongly opposed. So again, a very even split on what that looked like. The third question, did your perspective on paving the pathways change as a result of the open house? 2 were more supportive, opinion stayed the same was 4, and still undecided was 2. Again, quite an even split. And then there was some additional comments and things that we did get from those surveys and from some letters that were sent in. So regarding the pathways, there were concerns about potential ice buildup, about the safety on those pathways. Some paving would be okay, but focus on more trails would be more beneficial. This person appreciated all the work and support and input from schools. However, they would still prefer just an upgrade of the gravel paths that already exist, keeping the integrity of the Wilderness Park. There were several comments about focusing more on a pedestrian bridge. Then that would be a huge benefit to families and having access to that park. And then some other things that were not unrelated, but weren't directly related to the question, were the invasive plants down in the Wilderness Park, as well as potential for a boat dock or better access to the river. And then just a final comment from Alberta Environment. So we have reached out just to make sure that we're within our rights with Alberta Environment. So comments, Alberta Environment was contacted, like I said, with potential scope of the project. And the response was that in the current lease that we have over that Crown land, there is nothing in the disposition conditions that would prohibit this work. Our Alberta representative told us that we did not need a formal request on this, but we have confirmed through email, and we do have that as well. And as part of that, they did ask for a finalized plan that they could share, or that we could share to Alberta Environment, and they would put that on file. So that's that oversees the summary. And if there's any questions, then we can try and answer those.
Thank you for that good summary of the survey and some of the research that's been done. The recommendation is in our package based on some of that research, but we will entertain a motion from council regarding this topic, and then we can have some further debate and discussion after that. Anyone prepared to make a motion regarding the Wilderness Park paving proposal? So if there's no motion, then it doesn't go anywhere. Councillor Monteith. Councillor Monteith makes a motion, I assume as per the recommendation. The length and scope of the paving will be determined by obviously the cost, so the scope could be contracted or restricted based on the cost too, right?
Yes, that's correct. So the donation that was presented, they did give us kind of a number, and like I said, on the one slide, we looked at what we had done in previous years to try and get them a quick estimate of what could be accomplished for those. It is not the intent for the town to kind of contribute to this. So yes, if they were looking at that, and once we go through tender, if it came out to be more than anticipated, then yes, there would be room to retract or look at that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, very good. So the motion's on the floor. Any further questions or just for administration regarding what was presented? Councillor Fox?
I don't really have much of a question. While I appreciate Skoogle's donation, I personally am not in favor of this for kind of many reasons. I mean, I encourage things to be more accessible, but I feel like in a world where everything's being paved, it'd be nice to keep something a little more natural. Also, there's the added cost on if we do make this more accessible, there's bathroom upgrades, there's multiple other upgrades that need to be looked at as well, which will cost the town money down the road.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments for or against the motion? Councillor Monteith?
I've gone back and forth on this, but 62% of the people responding said they were in favor of it. And in this type of decision, I think what the people want is important. So I am supporting it. I also think by not paving it, we are limiting who can use it, and I have trouble with that. So that's why I think this is a good idea. Yes, it's a wilderness park, but if people can't use it, what's the purpose?
Very good. Any other comments for or against? Councillor Henniker?
I did have quite a few people at the open house and then just following make comment on what does the maintenance look like? Have we, yes, we've reached out to Alberta Environment, but is there or has there been any forecasting on what that would look like if there was a massive damage to the then paved area? And then also subsequently, what is the cost right now to our maintenance of our wilderness River Valley area that currently is paved? Do we know that from an administration standpoint of how much that area is currently costing us if we have to go down there? I saw there were some beautiful benches that were put up, so thank you for that, and garbage cans, but I just would love to know the cost currently, or just how much time we're spending down there at the current paved area now.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that. So again, if there was major damages, it would obviously cost more. So you're looking at pulling up sections and doing a repave of that area. So you could look at that similarly to whatever kind of final costs are to actually do the initial work. As far as maintenance right now, like you said, we do have in the plan that we're working on the Wilderness Park. We are and have upgraded the benches and those kinds of things. There is very little maintenance right now with where that is. We do some spraying, we do some cutting, clearing of trails and those kinds of things. But you're correct, it is quite minimal. With the asphalt, we are looking more at that and looking at how that affects our budgets, even with the pathways on the other side of the river. So we are gathering more information, but even those ones are quite new. So I don't know if we have details we can share. This is what it would cost and then kind of the maintenance there. But yeah, I guess that's where we are.
Very good. Councillor Boutros?
Yeah, just a couple questions. In your conversations with Alberta Environment, were there any comments as far as the materials being used? The Environment Committee had some concerns about the petroleum-based products, environmental contamination from runoff. Was there any concerns? I know there's plenty of places that have paved pathways. So is there any comment from Alberta Environment about those materials?
Not specifically. So when we talked about the lease that we had, there was no guidelines on what we could do down there as far as, because it was already existing pathway. So we weren't actually making any new paths or anything like that. The only concern they had was considerations if, I guess, based on how close it was to the river water and to that running water. So looking at that because of the distance from the river, then there wasn't concern there that they had brought up specifically.
Very good. Another question?
Yeah, you bet.
Go ahead.
How pressed are we for time for this? It seems like, I know you said we're gathering more information and there's a few other questions to be answered. Is this something, a decision, well, the recommendation was to go ahead and, what was it, to put it out for tenure? Yeah. Should we take some more time to make this decision, or is this something that needs to have a rush on it?
I guess the urgency or the timing on that would be because it is a donation that's linked to the celebration of 100 years for schools. So that's where the timings come from. The comments about looking at other materials. We did have some more discussions with the Environment Committee. We don't have anything firm yet as far as an alternative. We had some discussions about rubber, but we didn't feel that was conducive to what we were looking for either. So I guess along those lines, that's why we're looking at the asphalt, is that it's something that we know what to expect. We can get the costs. As far as myself and administration, I also spoke to some of the contractors that we work with on the other pathways, just to ask if they're using other materials. And essentially they said, well, if you're looking for this kind of hard surface, this is kind of where your money is best spent. There are other options, but they are fairly expensive. So that would limit kind of where that is, but I haven't got firm numbers on that. So I guess that's why the recommendation is we've had a little bit of time to look at other materials, doing some rough looks. This would be what would provide that hard surface.
Does that answer your question? In terms of timing, I think, yeah, obviously it's up to council's discretion. If council says they want more time to think about it, then that's what it would be. The recommendation, I think, is what you have in the package currently.
Yeah, that's correct. And I guess as far as timing to actually accomplish this year, I have talked to some of our contractors. How late in the year do they actually produce the asphalt, those kinds of things. So we have had discussions on there, but if we're looking to have this as part of their celebration and that donation, I guess we are running out of that construction season as well.
I think in your submission, you also had some more feedback or comments regarding even the Helen Schuler Nature Center and Whip Up Trail System, as well as a few others. Did you have any other comments on that?
I believe that was in the letter from the Inclusion and Accessibility
Okay,
Committee.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so they did comment about other areas. Not that we weren't or trying to ignore that, but we were focusing kind of on our community. But yeah, there are lots of examples of other areas that have the paving in their natural settings that seem to be quite successful.
I think the intent is not to pave all the wilderness trails. It's to provide at least a minimal amount for people to make use of. So I don't like when we look at the total trail system that we have, I think I don't know how many kilometers it is. This would be quite a small percentage of that amount of trails.
Yeah, and I think I did look, I guess just on that side. Let me see if I can find. I can't get in here. I think the 1 kilometer just in that area on that side of the highway and on that side of the river, we were looking at 1 kilometer of I think it was 3.2 or something around there. Yeah, so that's just in that area. That's kind of what we were looking at. If that gives you a comparison.
Very well. Any other thoughts, comments? The motion is on the floor. I know there's the option that we could postpone the vote on the motion if council so wishes. But otherwise, we would proceed with the vote now. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, debate? See over it.
One comment that's come up in the one thing that we have, I don't think it's uncommon given the, I guess, increased number of electric scooters and electric bikes. One thing that was considered, and I can't recall which circles we spoke about it and whether we discussed it with council or not, but the possibility of, reducing or not allowing, electric bikes and scooters at the Wilderness Park because of the winding trail. So there are some other, I guess, controls that we've considered, and we'll have to discuss with council if this goes forward to try to mitigate the, or just improve the safety for people walking on those trails because they are winding and there's, blind corners and stuff, but that's one of the options.
I know in my travels through BC, they love speed bumps. It's getting crazy. I have not seen so many speed bumps. Councillor Henniger?
I just wanted to make a comment that I was told by a gentleman in town that we're putting the cart before the horse when we're having a really gracious donation. We're paving the master plan pathway, but we also have a bridge that is access to that area that is actually not one that we're meant to commute on by foot or bike. It has a big sign that says don't do that. So I'm just wondering if that's ever of consideration, and has it been the actual accessibility to get to that lovely, beautiful area is not fun with kids, not fun with a stroller, and when there's teenagers going past you, whipping past your kids, and it's just we're not meant to be on the bridge. So I love it if I had a vehicle and I could go across, but you can't predict people driving past you on that bridge. Has that ever been a consideration for some sort of additional suspension? I don't know the past history of that bridge, but that was definitely a comment that I went, yeah, it sucks to get there. We're not meant to walk on the bridge, so.
It definitely was taken into consideration. One of the things that was looked at was the paving of that parking lot, just to say, okay, we have a cleaner spot with a hard surface right from the beginning that says, yep, come here, unload. So that was part of it. And I guess on your other point, we are looking at options for a pedestrian bridge. So we have reached out to a couple people, and I think it was Councilor Poitras that had suggested something as well. So we've had some people give us some quotes. We've also reached out to Alberta Transportation because it is their bridge. They do the maintenance and take care of that. So we've reached out to them. We have received an initial comment. They apparently have a bridge guy. So we have that contact. We've talked to him. We have got initial drawings of the bridge itself, and he is talking to his engineering group if it's even possible to do a cantilever on that bridge. So there is some discussions there. We also asked them about when the maintenance was, if they were thinking of replacing that bridge or doing anything, but that isn't currently in their plans within the next 5 years. And they do maintenance based on inspection, and so they'll look at it and then do maintenance that's needed. So that has been looked at. We are kind of actively looking at those options. But yeah, I guess that's where that's at.
Very good. If there's no other thoughts and council wants to decide on it tonight, then we can call it to question. I think if the motion fails, then council needs to be able to come up with some discussion items for the potential donor as to what the feedback would be, so that they don't, that there's some, encouragement or whatever from council one way or the other. And so, based on the feedback and the motion is on the floor, I will request call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on then to item H2, CAJHL investigation that was done by the town staff, for which we're grateful, and we'll ask our Director of Operations, Brendan Orr, to present that information.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So should there be no objections, the Council, it is recommended that the Council allows the rental of open ice time to the CAJHL without any further commitments or prioritizing over our current established users. And maybe just a little bit of background. So the CAJHL representation reached out to administration. They were looking for a collaboration in advertising, community support, ice time, live broadcasting, and with some deliverables such as bus support for the town, an additional exterior changing room, and community support and services to have a team in Fort Macleod. Administration offered open ice time at that time when we were having those discussions, open ice time rental, but we did not commit to any further contracts or agreements without details on the actual business model and the finances of this organization. The CAJHL approached the mayor and council and presented a delegation. So after the presentation, council had asked that we look further and do some investigation and make a new recommendation. So after looking into this, town administration, after town administration's first meeting, open ice time was offered. Oh, I guess we talked about that already, sorry. Part of what was presented by the CAJHL ownership was that there were other communities that had already committed and were part of this. And they had listed this in one of the letters and also in the delegation that they presented. So further investigation and discussions with those communities was had. So there's a timeline there that you can look at. So sorry, I'm just scrolling down a little bit. So on July 16th, 2025, we did some follow-up. We looked at, we again asked for some business plans, some detailed plans, financials from the CAJHL. We have not received a response as of yet. On July 24th to 28th, we had communications with the committed communities. So in the letter was listed Stavely as well as Pincher Creek. On a high level, when speaking to both those communities, they had said that they had talked to the organization. Their commitment was, as we had talked about, they had a similar commitment where they offered them ice time and would rent that out to them for open rental, but they had not signed any further agreements or had any commitments there. So based on what we saw as far as the other communities that were communicating with the CAJHL, as well as not receiving any, I guess, more detailed information about the business model or what they were looking for and what they were offering, their financials, those kinds of things, then we would continue to recommend that our support from the town be on the rental of open ice. That they can have that time and we can support in that way, but we don't make any other commitments or I guess collaboration with this organization at this time.
Very good. So technically a motion's not required if council doesn't want to do anything out of the ordinary, correct? So we can receive this as information potentially, or if council wants to take some further action, then that can be in the motion. Is anyone prepared to make a motion to accept the investigation as presented? And we can leave it at that. We can add something to the motion, Councillor Wilson. No? So your motion is to accept the investigation report as was presented. Any further questions on the motion or the presentation? Councillor Monteith?
Just some logistic questions. Where is this team that's going to be renting ice based out of? Because if all they're doing is renting ice around the area, where's their base? The other thing is, we're at the end of August. These hockey teams are starting up in September. Like, their schedules are probably already done. Like, logistics of it just don't make sense right now. So have you talked to them recently?
Maybe CEO Burdette can answer if he's received any information, but as of recently, since the delegation, I don't think we've had any direct contact.
No, that's correct. We made some follow-up emails, reached out to kind of gather some more information, part of our investigation, but we haven't heard anything since then. And like you said, with the upcoming season, that would be near an impossibility, because my understanding was that they were hoping to have a team in each one of these communities, but that's just the logistics of getting team numbers and all the things that would be required would be near impossible at this point. But
If I remember correctly too, I don't know that he was after the upcoming season. He was potentially looking at the season after, but I don't know that he was really, that was very clear. But that's, yeah.
Well, they would have to know what ice time they have available and when in order to do a schedule. And scheduling is usually done fairly early because you can't do it last minute. So I'm thinking this is going to be a non-issue.
Okay, very good. So the motion is on the floor to accept the investigation as information. Is there any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on then, I just got to get back to my current agenda. Moving on to new business, bylaw 2011, and we have our planner Gavin Scott patiently waiting to present bylaw 2011, a land use bylaw rezone.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This evening, we are introducing bylaw 2011, being an amendment to the land use bylaw. The purpose of bylaw 2011 is to redesignate lands legally described as lots 20 through 22 of block 444, plan 25-10566. This is in the 300 block of 25th Street. The three westerly blocks, they're west of 367 25th. This is the old Davis Motors site. The proposal is to move from commercial general to a direct control. The recommendation this evening is to move first reading and to set the public hearing for September 22nd at 7 p.m.
Very good. You would prepare to make a motion for first reading of bylaw 2011 as per the recommendation, Councillor Fox, which would also include the public hearing time. Any further discussion or questions on bylaw 2011? Councillor Monteith.
Who's initiating this?
GMS Mechanical is initiating.
Is this not the land that we said was direct control before? Didn't we vote on this a couple years ago?
We did across the street on the Larson parcels.
Very good. So the motion is on the floor. Any other questions or discussion? Motion is for first reading and the advertisement of a public hearing for September 22nd. If there is no other comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Moving on in new business to item 2, which is MD Willow Creek request for comments on their land use bylaw. And planner Gavin Scott wants to pick it apart and tell us all the things we should be fully in support or not in support of.
Yes, as a fellow planner, I know what it means to be picked apart, so I will spare Diane from that. This evening, we are just receiving for information the MDO Willow Creek, their draft bylaw, which is moving forward through its processes. Both myself and the development officer reviewed the document and have no concerns. There is a deadline for comments set for December 5th or September 5th, and we were meant to send feedback and questions. The links for the documents are provided in your package, and the public hearing is scheduled for September 10th at 1:30. Upon review, most of this has to do with the reorganization of their current bylaw, reorganizing land uses, reducing many of those land uses, recategorization, much like the work that you did to your own land use bylaw. The effect on yourselves is minimal because you don't have a urban fringe district, you don't have that direct connection that say a Clarisome or a Nanton has, where there are uses in that fringe that, if changed, would affect them. So I know that in those cases, they are being very careful, and at times they were not willing to make those changes at this juncture. Some of the other changes in the bylaw that you'll find are the settling on the subdivision policies that would happen in your fringe. Those policies have, for the most part, been kept, but are being clarified. And then the other big item that you might be aware of is just how the solar and wind that are going into your hinterland is being approached. Some of those changes are still being worked out. They did many changes ahead of this bylaw. There'll be some further tweaks, I think, in this one. But all told, really not anything that we have concerns for. So recommendation is that we receive for information.
Thank you very much. Planners critiquing another planner's document. That's gonna be fun, eh? Any comments or questions from council or anyone prepared to make a motion first to accept this information? Councillor Poitras makes that motion. Any other comments? It's a big document, of course. There's a lot of information in there. I did not read through the whole thing. I have full disclosure. It's something that doesn't directly apply to us, but as you mentioned, if there was a more of a fringe area, like we see in a lot of municipalities, that's where it becomes much more critical. So any other thoughts, comments? Seeing none, we'll call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Planner Gavin Scott. Have a great evening. And new business item 3, we'll ask Director of Finance Chris Holbeck to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor Vader. Good evening, Council, again. This item on the agenda is due to 4 properties on Knight Street, the sixplexes, paying their taxes after the due date of the last business day in June at 4:30 p.m. per the tax penalty bylaw, and then asking for forgiveness. So I don't have much to say about it. You know I am hardline on tax penalties. We send them out in April. I'm sorry if you bought a property after the notices went out. You should have communicated with your lawyer and the previous owner. It's just a real slippery slope when you start to allow people to give you reasons why they should be the one to have their tax penalties forgiven. So a recommendation is that council upholds all the tax penalties on these 4 properties for the 2025 tax year. Thank you.
So again, we technically don't need a motion, but if we want it, we can put one to uphold the penalties. But if we don't have it, then the penalties will be upheld anyways. Because the only time that council really should do anything is if we want to grant a forgiveness, correct?
Yeah, how we started this recommendation was I said that council should deny a request, but that's a negative motion. So Miranda jumped in and said, you can't have negative motions. So we made it a positive motion. So they do have a request and council will have to
Yeah.
deal with it one way or the other.
Yeah, so if council doesn't make a motion, then the request's been denied, technically, right? So up to council. I don't know that we have to have a motion, but if council wants a motion on record, then we can do that too. Unless council is of the opinion that we should grant their request. Anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Fox?
I'll make the motion to uphold the 2025 tax penalties.
Very well. Motion to uphold as per the recommendation is motions on the floor. Any further discussion or questions? They can always request the previous owners for the refund. I think that's where they should be going personally, or something. I don't know that council needs to be on the hook for this.
They should take their tax incentives
Yeah,
for the year and be thankful.
yeah, yeah.
Well, normally property taxes are on the statement of adjustments on the
Yeah.
sale. So that's why I don't quite understand how this could slip through on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe because it was a new building, so they haven't had any tax bills on it yet, but no, there should add some. Because I think they already have, yeah. Okay, so either way, the motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to an in-camera item, I'll request a motion for the one in-camera ATIA, Section 19, in-camera item. Councillor Patel makes the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much.